The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Hashi Pottery in 50 Arrow Gallery at Eastworks. Japanese-inspired ceramics and textiles, where every piece is handmade in the Pioneer Valley for home, ritual, or someone dear. HashiPottery.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll celebrate the well-being of the Asparagus Valley with the Hilltown Community Health Center, who've been keeping people well for 75 years.
And Mr. Universe Salman Hamid shows us our cosmic neighbors in the TRAPPIST solar system.
And speaking of neighbors, in Conway, the community comes together to celebrate the next generation, throw some skillets, split some wood, and much, much more.
Since 1962, Conway's Festival of the Hills has welcomed visitors to the weekend before Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate community spirit and artistic talent. What began as a celebration of peace and local culture has grown into a cherished tradition featuring a Sunday full of events, including a 10K road race, log splitting, and skillet toss contests, a fall parade, live music, arts and craft, local food, and so much more. Since 2000, the festival has been awarding over $155,000 in scholarships to more than 200 Conway High School seniors. To talk about that, we have Alexis Arcaro and Sue McDonald. Thanks for joining us on the Fabulous 413.
Thanks for having us.
Sure, and that's a speed through this origin story, but can somebody talk about what the first Festival of the Hills was like and who started this?
Well, I can probably talk a little bit to that. This is Sue. It was originally set up as a means of raising money, I should say, for, I believe it was the town's anniversary. So it would have been the 200th. That was the original premise of it. People had such a great time at it, they decided to keep it going. Because it was raising money, they decided, well, let's make it into scholarships for Conway graduating high school seniors. And then as that started happening, one of the things that got added was, let's not just make it for seniors that are going on to college. Let's give a little bit to seniors that are maybe going into the work field immediately, into trade school, even entrepreneurship. So it's more than just college-bound students. And we've kept it going, except for a couple little hiccups where we had COVID and weren't able to do it. I think that's pretty common.
It's entirely volunteer run, so
Very much
really
so.
relies heavily on volunteers to make it happen.
Where, is there a committee for the volunteers? Where do they find, I'd assume that they'd find out at a previous Festival of the Hills and then go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I want to join. Is it only made up of folks from Conway itself?
Primarily, yes. Initially, we get volunteers from, we just beg for them, I have to say. We do a lot of begging. We do have a core group that is the board. We are a nonprofit, so we do have to have a board. I'm actually on that. I actually act as the treasurer. And then we put out pleas. We just start asking, and we thankfully get some new people to join us that become heads of the activity areas. So Alexis came on board this year for publicity. She's been phenomenal. We've had a few other people that have joined us brand new this year, and it keeps it going. It keeps new blood coming in and new ideas. So it really takes a village.
That's facts.
Yeah. In the past, I was on trash duty on the day of. I did the info booth, and this year I had a little bit more time, and so I came on to do some publicity. But it's like anyone who has any time could just come on the day of and just give a couple hours or however much time they have.
I want to talk about those scholarships just a little bit because non-academic scholarship aspect, because that's not an avenue that many would consider. Whose idea was it to make it a little bit broader and really encourage those who were picking up trades, because it is also still learning?
Well, I know it stems back at least to the early 70s, because my husband was one of the recipients when he graduated. And he was, I think he graduated in the mid 70s, and he wasn't college bound, but he did receive like a scholarship basically towards whatever his needs were. He obviously needed a vehicle. In more recent years, we've had students that have gone on to trade school, people that were taking a gap year that wanted to, maybe use it for some part of that, even somebody that was starting a small business.
We're talking with Alexis Arcaro and Sue McDonald about Conway Festival of the Hills. I feel like if almost all of your volunteers come from Conway, it's very important that we put the town first. Conway is particularly hilly, and I am not necessarily a runner. When did the 10K become a part of the festivities?
That's a good question. It has been there since as long as I can remember. I've been in the town for almost 40 years, so I think it dates at least 30 years of that. And we've had some really phenomenal people that have headed that up. John Reno currently is our coordinator for that, and he pretty much does it all on his own. It's a really challenging course, so people really like to run it
10K
because
is
of
no
that.
joke.
It would be challenging no matter what for me.
Me also. The festivities start on Friday and then go through Sunday. Walk us through the things that will happen at the Conway Festival of the Hills this weekend.
Well, on Friday night, there's actually going to be a benefit concert that's going to be at the UCC church in town. That's going to support the food bank of Western Mass. Saturday, we have a festival bake sale that happens in the very center of the town. We call it Cafe Conway. And there's also a candy table, so it's handmade candy that will be there. Our Friends of the Library book sale. This year, there's going to be a Howland Cemetery tour that's going to be conducted by the Historical Society. New this year, we're going to have a Conway Cruise Night, and that's a car show, basically shutting down all of our main street. So 116 that comes through town is going to be shut down from 2 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, and that will be a show of antique vintage cars. It rounds out at night at 5:30. There's a turkey dinner at the Conway Grammar School, sponsored by the Firemen's Auxiliary. And then Sunday, 10 a.m., the race starts off, the Covered Bridge Classic, and all of the other festivities happen. Some of the key things are we have a log splitting contest, but we'll have live music there. So we do have, and that is also from local musicians. We have another small scholarship that we give out in honor of Trisha Donovan, who was a key festival volunteer. She actually was a chairperson for many years and passed away. So we give out a scholarship in her memory, and we usually choose a recipient who has contributed as a volunteer to the festival. They're a graduating senior from this past spring. We have a parade, and then it's our famous skillet toss. And that's what we're kind of known for now. That is something that was added to the festival over 20 years ago. It might be coming up on 30 something years again. And it's just a lot of fun.
Okay, how does the skillet toss, is it exactly as it says? Like you basically take a skillet, like a cast iron skillet, I'm imagining, because you want heft to it, and then you hurl it.
Yep, it is a cast iron skillet, and it is thrown underhand. There's a measured line. It's not just how far that you throw it, it's how close to that line that it has to land. So we have a longtime coordinator of that, Jim Recor in town, and he is a previous track coach, so he's very specific to this. There is a winner for the men's division and also for the women's division, and there's prizes, and then of course you get the honor of being the skillet toss champion for the year. And then you have to defend that. You have to defend that the next year.
I recommend they practice before they come. That's what I have to say if they want to do this, because there have been skillets. You just need to try to throw them straight in front of you. That would be my biggest recommendation if you're practicing at home. Just like right in front. Just try to stay in front, not out into the crowd.
Please no.
No throwing it like a shot. That does or anything like that. No, there's a specific way of throwing it for safety reasons, but also that's what's going to get you the longest distance too. So there's a little bit of a demonstration to anybody who's new. It's a very popular event. It's a great time.
I just want to mention also one of Conway's treasures, Tom Riccardi, will be there, who is a raptor rehabilitator, and so he comes with his birds of prey, and he has from screech owls to barred owls to, he had at one point a golden eagle, red-tailed hawks all the time, and he brings them and he shows them to people, and he teaches people how to deal with a bird that needs help, or to leave a bird that leave a bird alone that needs help. But he's really one of Conway's treasures, and he will be there, and he's a very special person and a great educator.
Oh, Tom is awesome. Like, he's the dude that like, if you find a hawk somewhere and you're like, okay, I know exactly who to take this to, and that person is Tom. And like, when the floods happened in 2023, he lost a bunch of his shelters, and the community came together to rebuild those for him because he is such an important resource. So it is incredible that he's going to be a part of this, and you won't be able to see those birds up close in any other way. That isn't really sad. So take advantage. We're talking about Conway Festival of the Hills with two of the organizers, Sue McDonald and Alexis Arcaro. Alexis, you seem newer to the festival itself. What drew you in and got you involved? Talk about the community that you've seen by being involved with the festival itself.
Well, yeah, I am new to being on the committee, and I think what's really great, I've been involved in various ways in Conway for a few years, but my husband grew up here, and I've lived here for about 10 years. I worked in the library for a number of years, and I was just so amazed by like being around all of my neighbors that you never really get to see when you live in the hill towns, because your neighbors aren't exactly right next to you. The community that comes together in a place like the library or the festival, it's really great to see everyone all in one place. When I had a little bit more time this year, I was like, wow, I really want to be more involved, and I have met more of my neighbors by being involved this year. And that's been really great to have that connection to community, especially in these times that can feel like super isolating and polarizing. It feels great to have these connections with people in our community for sure.
And Sue, this is a really unique experience of a town that's actively supporting and bolstering a younger generation that in some capacity might come back and like help the community more. So talk a little bit more about what you've seen come out of the youth that have either participated or received these scholarships.
Well, I have to say that our current chairperson, Hazel, was a recipient of the scholarship, and she's some of the young blood that's come back, and she's pulling in people, her friends in the community that are helping out. There's a feeling in Conway that we know that this town it's more than just a place to live, and the festival is something that I've heard multiple times that people moving into town, they've heard about the festival, and they said that knowing about the festival or even attending it swayed their decision to come into Conway. People are very proud about the festival. About every 10 years, as people get a little relaxed, we usually have to put a plea out and say, we're getting to the point where we need new people coming in. And people step up every time. It's amazing. People are very dedicated to keeping this going. We're seeing more and more of the young people coming in. We have a person that joined our committee this year that literally had bought her house, I think in June, saw in our Conway Currents that we were pleading for volunteers, and she came to the next meeting. That was saying a lot right there.
How many scholarships is the festival giving out this particular year in 2025?
Oh, you would ask me that. Off the top of my head, let me see. We've had as many as 12. We've had as few as 5. It really depends on, who we get for applications, as long as they qualify. We do base it on a few different criteria. Financial need, also academics. We have a category that is volunteering at the festival. We do give you extra points for that. So we really encourage our youth to be doing that. And I have to say that our PTO has stepped up, and they're running our kids activity area, and they're getting those kids to volunteer. It's great. It's a whole family event, not just in enjoying it, but in actually running it. That's key there too.
Oh, that sounds awesome. It's the Conway Festival of the Hills happening this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And we have been speaking with Alexis Arcaro and Sue McDonald, who are both on the committee that run the festival. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out to talk with us.
And we'll have fried dough, too.
Oh, okay. See, now you're speaking the New England,
right?
The official language of New England. It's like, there's fried dough.
Yeah, there'll be maple cream also. So.
See, yes. And that is the way it should be done, always. Yes. Period.
The Conway Festival of the Hills happens this weekend, October 3rd through 5th, in Conway Center. You can find the full schedule at festivalofthehills.com. And as of this broadcast, they're still looking for volunteers, and you can find information on that in the same place.
And it looks like if you're into running, you can still register for the 10K road race and even register for it on the day of the race itself. Thanks again to Sue McDonald and Alex Arcaro for joining us. And now to space and the very much like us TRAPPIST system with Mr. Universe Salman Hamid.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, dedicated to custom solar installations, electric vehicle charging solutions, and reliable long-term system support. northeast-solar.com.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Time once again for some more kitchen table astronomy from the Amherst Kitchen Table of Hampshire College astronomer and the head of Kainat Studios, Dr. Salman Hamid. Mr. Universe, before we launch into a planet far, far away with potentially an Earth-like atmosphere, potentially making for a good place for life to exist, P.T. Anderson's One Battle After Another, currently at Amherst Cinema, where you sit on the board of that nonprofit community theater. I don't want to know anything about it. I love P.T. Anderson. You've seen it, and you want to see it again.
Right, I'm not going to comment whether I liked it or not. I just want to see it again. The way to describe it, and again, without giving anything away, I hate spoilers and anything, knowing anything about the movie, I will just say it is a movie that is for the right time and for the right place. And it is a lot of fun. It is long, but you won't feel it. I love Paul Thomas Anderson, and I think this is absolutely fantastic. That's all I will say.
Okay, good. Enough said. Now to outer space.
This is one of the star systems that the most anticipated star system to be observed by James Webb Space Telescope. And this is TRAPPIST-1 system. And this was discovered, the planets were discovered around it about 10 years ago or something like that, or more than that. This is a star system where we know that there are probably 7 planets around it. This is about 40 light years away. So in terms of thinking about distances, this is not that far.
Which means we could send them a message, and in 2065, they would receive it. And then if they sent a message back, we would receive it in 2105.
Sure, but that's not the point. The point is that you can actually, it's not that far, so we can actually look at it with telescopes and actually try to get data out of it. And the other thing is that the way it is oriented, the planets actually go in front of the star. And in that sense, these planets eclipse the star. This is how they were discovered. But the fantastic thing about that is that you can learn a lot about planets when they are going in front of their star. Mm-hmm. And so this is a great opportunity. And when James Webb Space Telescope was launched, one of these fantastic things was like, well, we can really see that because we also knew that the 7 planets that are there are also smaller in size. They are rocky planets. They are around the size of the Earth, roughly. So this was a full solar system with planets. 3 of them we knew were at a distance from a star where water can exist in liquid form. This is called habitable zone.
Or Goldilocks zone, which I think is more fun.
I wonder who lives here. Ooh, porridge!
Goldilocks zones and dwarf stars. It's like a fairy tale in space.
But yes, so 3 of the planets are at a distance where potentially water can exist in liquid form. So in our own solar system, Earth and Mars are in the habitable zone. Venus is on the edge of it. So just because you're in the habitable zone doesn't mean that you are inhabited, but it just means that the potential for life goes higher because water can exist in liquid form.
And again, the Goldilocks thing, not too hot, not too cold.
That's just right.
All of that said, this particular star is very different from our sun. So this is what is called an ultra-cool red dwarf.
Hell yeah.
That's right.
Last the mule is going to come back in style.
So this is, what that means is that its temperature is much cooler than our sun. So ultra-cool still doesn't mean that it's freezing. It's about, about 2600 degrees Kelvin. And so it's still very hot compared. Our sun is around 6,000 degrees. And it's much smaller than our sun. It's about roughly 10% the size of our sun. So it is not as hot as our sun, so you can imagine that the habitable zone, the distance where water can exist in liquid form, would be much closer to this star than our sun. And indeed, these planets that have been discovered, the closest one, for example, takes only 1.5 days to go around. The habitable zone planets, those are like 4 days orbit, 6 days orbit, and so 9 days orbit. So they are actually still very, very close to their star, even though because the star is much cooler, they are in the habitable zone. But all 7 of these planets are way closer than Mercury is for our own solar system.
Interesting.
So this is a very strange, very different solar system compared to our sun. Now, I am delaying it. And there is a reason why I'm delaying getting to the point about the interesting news item about the analysis of some of these planets. But what I should also mention that these type of stars are the most abundant in the universe. So it's actually, the fact that we are finding a lot of planets around those, that is fantastic. That means that our universe is full of planets. And these stars live a very long life. So for this particular star system, TRAPPIST-1, the estimate is that it's about 7.5 billion years old. Much older than our own solar system, which is about 4.5 billion years. And it is expected to live about 10 trillion years.
So the ultra cool stars are the coolest and live the longest. They're the Keith Richards and Willie Nelsons of our universe.
That is absolutely correct. I think they should rename those the Nelsons.
Crazy.
So, what do we know about them? The way astronomers name these planets, and that is the first planet that was discovered, is called TRAPPIST-1b. And then the next one
Not
is...
TRAPPIST-1a.
Exactly.
Way to go, astronomers.
So there is no TRAPPIST-1a, but the first planet is TRAPPIST-1b. The next one is C, D, E, F, G, and H. But there is no A. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that you actually take astronomy classes, you do a degrees, because otherwise anybody could be an astronomer. So TRAPPIST-1b is the closest to the star. James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, looked at it and found no atmosphere.
Okay.
It's a rocky planet, no atmosphere.
Like some restaurants that I've been to.
That is correct. And more restaurants, because then it looked at the next one, 1c, no atmosphere. And then they looked at the third one, 1d, no atmosphere.
Okay.
And that was a little bit of a disappointment because we expected, forget about whether Earth-like atmosphere, but like places like Venus, for example, in our own solar system where there is no life, but it has a very thick atmosphere. We expected like maybe there will be something, but nothing. Now there was a lot of hope/interest in looking at TRAPPIST-1e. So this is the 4th planet distance-wise from the star, and its density is known to be similar to that of the Earth. And that has been recently observed. It takes about 6 days to go around the star. And the answer is, we don't know.
Oh.
And so this has been observed, and there were 4 transits, meaning to say James Webb Space Telescope observed it 4 times going across the star. When the planet goes in front of the starlight goes through, potentially, if there is an atmosphere, potentially goes through the atmosphere, and it tells us what is in the atmosphere if there is any. So that's why it is these kind of planets that go in front of a star or they eclipse the star, they are crucial for providing us with information, and this did that. And what they have found is that it looks like that it certainly lost its original atmosphere. Probably it was formed with an atmosphere. That original atmosphere is gone. So there were 2 papers that came out early in September about this, and one of the papers looked at it, and it said that there is a possibility that there is a secondary atmosphere, which maybe has a bit of methane and maybe some nitrogen. So they could not rule that out. So that's a positive thing. So normally you look at positive signs, but here is the case where they could not rule it out, and there is a faint hint that maybe this secondary atmosphere is there. Now, this primary and secondary atmosphere, Earth went through the same thing. Earth actually lost its primary atmosphere, the one that it was formed with, but then later on you have outgassing from volcanoes, you have, the original, you also have comets and asteroids crashing in and creating sort of like, an atmosphere from there. But there is a rock cycle that actually produces gases that go up in the atmosphere. And eventually, by the way, our atmosphere was also transformed by life itself because of the oxygen in the atmosphere. And in fact, the presence of molecular oxygen is one of the signs people look for that maybe it can tell us that there is life there or not. But we are far from there. Here for the observation of TRAPPIST-1e, which is in the habitable zone. It has composition density similar to the Earth. Astronomers have not been able to rule out an interesting atmosphere, but
they haven't ruled it in either.
They haven't ruled it in either. The stakes are pretty high. People are really interested in it. And so the James Webb Space Telescope, there is discretionary time. So the competition is pretty high in terms of getting time on James Webb Space Telescope. I think it's 10-1 or something like that, or more. For every 10 proposals, one get accepted. But for this particular object, TRAPPIST-1e, there are 15 more transits that are going to be observed. And that comes from a discretionary time, meaning to say the director says, you know what, this is really cool. Here is some time for you guys because this is really important. So right now, the results are based upon 4 transits. There are going to be 15 more to look at it. And we think that we will find something more.
What about TRAPPIST FGH? I think that's the limit of them.
I think they're going. Well, there may be an I, by the way. Maybe it's not confirmed. And if that is the case, people were saying like, well, then it makes it sort of like, first of all, that will make it the most planet around a star that has been observed as an exoplanet. So
it'll be just like our solar system, except we have 9.
We have 9.
We love you, Pluto.
Why did you have to do this? Like, no, we have 9. No, not 8.
Throw a bone to the rest of the astronomical community.
Yes, thank you. We still are number 1, 9 planets. But here is a cool thing. The reason why this star system is important because it's an ultra-cool dwarf. These are red dwarfs and they are like, the most common in the universe. But the problem is that these have a lot of magnetic activity, meaning to say there are a lot of flares from these stars. So people actually, astronomers have been concerned about it that because a planet has to be close to the star to be in the habitable zone, and the star itself is much more active, for example, than our sun. Our sun has a lot of flares as well, but these stars have a lot more activity than our sun. So one of the things that people have been worried about is that this kind of activity from its star would have basically got rid of the atmosphere, especially those planets that are close to them. And remember, those are much closer, a day or 2 days or 3 days of orbit around it. So those are very close. This creates a lot of problem because if you are trying to understand the light going through the atmosphere, potentially atmosphere of the planet, when it passes in front, you want to make sure that it is not coming from an activity from the star.
Right.
Like, that it is actually whatever is happening to that light is simply happening because it is passing through the atmosphere. And astronomers have come up with an amazing way to correct that. For the future observations, as I mentioned, there are 15 more coming up. As it happens, TRAPPIST-1b, which is the closest one to the star, as it happens, it oftentimes passes in front of the star right before TRAPPIST-1e, the one that we are interested in. And so what astronomers are planning on doing is to observe both of those planets. So first 1b and then 1e. And the first one, the closest one, we know there is no atmosphere. So if there is no variation to the light, we would know that when this planet that we are interested in, any variation probably is because of the light passing through the atmosphere of the planet rather than the star itself belching out or something like that.
Because if it belched out, the one with no atmosphere B we'd see it with B. If something happens with E, but nothing with B, we know it's exclusive to E.
And it is so cool. I mean, I just love the fact that astronomers go like, okay, this is a serious problem. How do we solve it? Well, you have another planet that goes in front of it, and we know there is nothing on it. It shouldn't have anything on it because it's too close to the star. We have observed nothing on it. So that becomes your test case.
One thing we have not mentioned is why do they call it TRAPPIST? Aren't TRAPPIST monks?
Yes, and they are thinking about this planet a lot. No, this is actually a telescope, which, funny that you asked, it is called Transiting Planets and Planetesimal Small Telescope Project.
So it's like an acronym.
It's an acronym, but it's a cool acronym.
Yeah,
and
Trappists also make cool beer.
that is correct, and that's what makes them ultra cool, by the way.
Yeah, right, the ultra cool stuff.
But Trappist One comes from this particular project that is based in Chile. And so keep an eye on that. The key thing is, if we find something interesting, this would mean that these kind of stars are the most abundant in the universe. And if we find potential atmosphere conditions that are suitable for life, that would also mean that those are extremely common. And I don't have to remind you, skepticism. That's because people are not sort of like jumping up and down. No, we like, like in this particular case, we found an atmosphere which is actually really suitable for life. No, people go like, have we really found it? Can we rule out? Can we find other ways that we can rule out? And if we cannot rule out, well, let's observe again. Let's observe in other cases how we can confirm it, because we don't want to live in a fairy tale, even though we've been talking about it.
Cool dwarfs,
right?
Goldilocks zone.
Because we want to know what is there rather than what we want to find.
I mean, I'd also throw out that, like most fairy tales, have pretty harsh environments. Just in general, bad things are happening there.
Yes, and even if they do have an atmosphere around Trappist 1E, it's probably also a very harsh environment.
And now back to the Hilltowns and more of our neighbors getting well as we celebrate 75 years of health with the folks from the Hilltown Community Health Center and learn how you can celebrate with them at an event this weekend.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Okay.
Salisbury Hill. Hilltown Community Health Center.
Okay. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. In 1950, Florence Bates, a dedicated Red Cross nurse, recognized the urgent need for permanent health care in the Hilltowns. Together with local residents, she founded the Worthington Health Association, laying the foundation for what is now Hilltown Community Health Center.
Today, HCHC, or as we're going to call it, HC Squared.
HC Squared.
I think so, maybe. Proudly serves more than 8,000 patients through over 31,000 visits annually from locations in Amherst, Huntington, and Worthington, providing care in 16 languages and offering integrated services that include medical, dental, behavioral health, optometry, nutrition, and weight management.
And this Saturday, October 4th, at the Worthington Historical Society, the HC Squared will celebrate 75 years of keeping folks well in the Hilltowns. With us to talk about the history of the HCHC and the upcoming celebrations are CEO Michael Purdy, Debbie DiStefano, the Chief People and Compliance Officer for HC Squared, and Nancy Gilbert, board member and organizer of the 75th celebration. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much for having us.
And although we mentioned that Florence Bates did start what is now the Hilltown Community Health Center, like, she was the 10th Red Cross nurse that was a part of trying to keep those Hilltowns well. This whole thing actually starts in the 1920s. Can somebody give us a rundown of the history of the health center?
So, I'm a nurse. I'm a public health nurse. And while the Red Cross nurses and Florence was doing this, other Mary Breckenridge in Kentucky started the Frontier Nurses. And Lillian Wald in New York City started the Henry Street Settlement. So Florence was really avant-garde because you didn't have internet and you didn't have cell phones to keep up with what was going on. And she saw a need, so she left Red Cross nursing in 1932 to become the town nurse in Worthington, where she covered 17 schools and all the needs. She also bought her home there and set up a rest home rehab facility where she cared for people. In 1948, the doctor who she worked with, Dr. Mary Snook, had to leave Worthington for health reasons, and it was the first time since the founding of Worthington that they didn't have a doctor. So this happened very quickly. You won't see it happening now. She started talking to everybody. In February of 1950, she asked at town meeting that we have a health center in Worthington. They formed a committee, and on October 3rd, 1950, it was incorporated, and it opened in December of 1950. It was to meet needs, and that's what each center, every place has been working on ever since. We can learn from history, needs change, and so does the community Hilltown Community Health Center, or HC Squared.
Do you guys call it HC Squared, or did we just?
No, but that's a good option. I think that's our future.
Well, we have one of our underwriters is Pioneer Valley Photovoltaics, and they go by PV Squared Solar. So it just makes sense. The HCHC, you could even
Do we have to copyright that?
No,
now?
it's all yours.
You're legally allowed to square anything. Math is still protected under the First Amendment. Last time I checked. We are talking about HC Squared, the Hilltown Community Health Center, who will celebrate their 75th anniversary with an event this weekend from 11 to 1 October 4th that it's at the Worthington Historical Society. We get a little glimpse into Worthington history right there. The other thing that's interesting on the invite is the Founders Circle honorees are Stefan W. Plen, Roy and Helen McCann, Mary P. Allison, the late great John P. Musanti, and Arlo Guthrie. Tell us how Arlo Guthrie plays into the history of HC Squared.
Our historian was actually at the concert.
Our historian in residence here is the board member.
In 1975, Lucille Temple, who I had met as a visiting nurse, told me about this concert. So having not gone to Woodstock, I thought, I'm going to go up there. But I thought I would go late and leave early, not to get stuck in traffic.
Wait, what is this concert that we're talking about?
It was the Arlo Guthrie concert. In 1975, he held a concert as a fundraiser at Senna Acres. And
Where is that?
It's in the center of Worthington. It's now a brewery. Back then it was a farm.
And it's now called Santa Farm Brewery.
Yes.
And I went. I was way in the back. I saw him. I heard him. I thought it was marvelous. And when I got on the board, I said, yeah, I've known about the health center. Also, I worked as the first discharge planner at Cooley Dickinson Hospital. And the two doctors, Dr. Scarman and Dr. Shevin, who would come down in the 70s from the Hilltowns to see their patients, I admired them. And so I left the Board of Health in Amherst and went on the board for the Hilltown, or HC Squared. And here we are.
So you were wooed by Arlo Guthrie into the Hilltowns.
There were a lot of people. We have heard so many stories recently, and people who hitchhiked to the concert, and it was just amazing. Like for us, I didn't know it because I'm from Missouri, and I was like, and Michael either, and we're like, this is like legend in the Hilltowns. Yeah. So, and then when you hear what Arlo said about we need national health care in the 70s, it's like, yay, Arlo, you're supporting it with your music.
Well, we're talking about healthcare in the rural communities where we live here in the 413 in celebration of the 75th anniversary of the Hilltown Community Health Center and the 50th anniversary of that concert, I believe, with Arlo Guthrie, with the CEO, Michael Purdy, Debbie DiStefano, the Chief People and Compliance Officer for HCHC, and Nancy Gilbert, a board member and nurse.
But now, Michael Purdy, there are more than just the center in Worthington. There's a spot in Huntington. There's a spot in Amherst. Talk about the way that HC Squared is now able to cover more ground in the name of its mission.
Yeah, so originally started out as the Worthington Health Center, or Worthington Health Association. Also around 1950, Nancy can always correct me on the exact date of that, we became a federally qualified community health center, meaning we had some federal grants that were coming in. And with that, it allowed us to really adapt and look at what the needs of the community were. And the next community that was picked was Huntington. We opened up our second site down in Huntington. And then from there, because we are rural, the schools were having an issue with absenteeism. And we thought we could really step in there and do a school-based health center. We had another board member that was instrumental in doing that, which was Wendy Long, who worked at the school, and she just really pushed for that. And when the school, they built a new facility, they incorporated as part for us right in the building, and I think we're probably the only school that has done that. And that's really just been a way that we can respond to the needs of the community, because we travel further away than most. So taking a kid to go, get a well child visit or whatever, usually means the whole day is missed.
Yeah.
So we were responding to that with a school-based health center. And then John Musanti approached us about the needs in Amherst. And
he was the former town manager of Amherst.
He was the former
died far too young.
Yes.
I got to know him very well. He was a great dude.
Yes, he was great and really pushed to make it happen. And because of him, we were able to get a space in the Bank Center and open that facility in 2018.
Mm-hmm. 2018.
Look at me with these dates.
Yeah, right. You've got,
except for I will say we became a federally qualified center in 1976.
It's good to have two historians with you.
Yes, it is.
CEO Michael Purdy of HCHC.
These are not the numbers he usually has to keep track of.
That's right. But what's interesting to me is, Huntington is the Hill Towns, and your original location is the Hill Towns. Amherst, not the Hill Towns. So tell us about why Amherst, of all other places, as that other new location.
So once you're designated as a federally qualified community health center, you can open up satellites and still have the same benefits of being a federally qualified health center. Towns can't just decide to open up a community health center.
Mm-hmm.
So
anymore.
It was a part. Yeah.
Well, Worthington did it all those years ago, right? Yeah.
In the 1990s, there was a task force with many healthcare providers, Cooley Dickinson, to look at the needs for meeting people's needs for health care. And the task force identified a need for a clinic or something in Hadley and Amherst.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have John Musanti with his love for Amherst and his powerful insight to try and help meet the needs. As a matter of fact, the 2 days after the grant came through, and he said he was ecstatic that we were getting the grant to get the health center going, he unexpectedly died, and that was the last public meeting he was at and the last public statement he made.
And then in honor of him, the health center
Yes.
is named after him, and very fittingly, the health center in Amherst. Well, we are in an era of federal cuts when it comes to healthcare, and I'm sure that's going to have an impact on what you're doing at HC Squared, the Hilltown Community Health Center, and we'll find out a little bit more about those cuts when we come back with CEO Michael Purdy, Debbie DiStefano, the Chief People and Compliance Officer for HCHC, and Nancy Gilbert, a board member of HC Squared.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Train pulls out at Kankakee and rolls along past houses.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are talking about the Hilltown Community Health Center, founded officially first in Worthington, but then moving on to Huntington and Amherst and celebrating 75 years with an event this weekend. And we're with CEO Michael Purdy, Debbie DiStefano, Chief People and Compliance Officer for HCHC, and board member Nancy Gilbert.
And we did mention that you are federally recognized, and this is an interesting time to have federal recognition in anything. Have there been changes in your funding due to the current administration and their Department of Health?
CEO Michael Purdy?
Yeah. So we've been very fortunate that right now the funding has come through as allocated by Congress. So that's this is, of course, an area that we are keeping an eye on for risk management, mitigation.
Risk management?
Yeah.
That's my job.
I thought we just don't have to take Tylenol and then everything is fine.
Right? So the funding is still coming in, but all of the aspects of the so-called big, beautiful budget have not yet been implemented.
That's exactly correct.
So what are you anticipating will happen if it goes through as planned right now?
We anticipate that our first bump in this road coming up is going to be the reduction in the ACA subsidies, which would mean that some of our patients may convert from having insurance to being uninsured, and pushing then the burden of healthcare, the cost of healthcare back on the patient. So we're watching that very closely. We do have hired staff that help navigate patients through health insurance to be able to get health insurance. So people who are underinsured or uninsured, we will try and help them to get insurance. We anticipate they're going to be incredibly busy coming up. And then beyond that, we're just looking at the Medicaid cuts, people who will have to work to keep up with the regulations, to prove that they are employed, looking for employment, or doing community service, all of which we know has never been a problem in the past. So this is just a burden that our employees and our patients are going to have to face.
What about elderly people on
That's
Medicaid?
That was what I was
you know,
gonna
they're
ask.
not. Is that going to have an impact? And how many elderly people are you working with at HC Squared?
So a large portion of our population is elderly, being in the hill towns. And we do know that the Big Beautiful Bill, if nothing is done, does trigger a cut to the Medicare as well. We are still working with the Mass League, which is a big organization of all community health centers, to see what the impact of that is going to be. Also working with state legislators to try and work something out with the state of Massachusetts. And we are very fortunate to be in Massachusetts, where the state is willing to talk to us and see if they can help come up with some solutions for this.
But once again, as we keep mentioning, the state cannot be relied on to make
100%.
up the entirety of the deficit that is about to be created, even if it is a little bit of a stopgap.
Not just in healthcare, but in every aspect. In SNAP, which ultimately plays into healthcare, and the arts, and everything that we cover on this show, essentially.
We're also looking...
And this show.
The show.
Because we lost the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
We're all in the same boat rowing.
Yeah.
Hey!
USS USA. And we are speaking with the folks behind the Hilltown Community Health Center, the CEO Michael Purdy, Debbie DiStefano, and board member Nancy Gilbert, about the 75th anniversary celebration that will happen this weekend.
Speaking of, now that we've talked about some of the hardships that are headed our way, why not celebrate before that happens about something really, really good, which is to say, like your 75th birthday. So talk to us about this celebration that's going to happen on Saturday.
So I'm going to start just because we've all worked very, very hard, and I'm really happy because it's kind of brought the hill towns awake, in the sense, like, they've always been awake, right? But it's like
It's almost like they're alive with
yes,
the sound of music.
people are celebrating us, because something that people don't understand is that, we serve so much of Hampshire County and part of Hampden County, so it's a huge swath of territory. And so what we're going to do is we're just bringing the focus. That's why it's in Worthington, because that's where it started. And it's to bring back where we have folk music that's going to be played. This is not a big, because we are federally qualified. We don't have tons of extra money to be spending on stuff. So we are not going to, but we're going to spend what we can on what we're able. We have music. We have some of our elected officials are going to be present. We have raffle prizes. We've had a lot of great donors, like from the Chesterfield General Store. We've had from Russell Inn. We've had Tandem Bagel. All these different groups that have donated stuff so that we could put them in raffles. And it's not going to be long, but we just really want to celebrate healthcare, because that's our mission is to provide access to high quality integrated healthcare and promote well-being to individuals, families, and communities. And that's what we want to center the day on.
And it's a true celebration. Yes, we need a fundraiser, but we decided to do this as a celebration. We won't turn down any money that people will give us, but we're going to celebrate the founders that helped us grow, the McCanns, who in the 1960s gave us money and land, and then the next big donor was Arlo Guthrie and his concert.
How much money did that concert raise back then? Do you remember?
$18,000.
Yeah.
$18,000
In
by
1975 money?
$1976.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Mary P. Allison, who was a friend of Florence Bates, when she died in 1978, she left $250,000 for an endowment.
And Florence Bates was that first
She
founder
was their
nurse.
first
Yes.
nurse, the founder of it. Stephen Flynn, when he died, all his memorial money went, and they redid a waiting room in honor of him. And then John Musanti, who, with his love for Amherst and love for helping people, gave us the Musanti Health Center. And we were also going to give awards to staff, a Clinical Excellence Award for a staff member, a Clinical Support Staff, and a Spirit Award for the Spirit. So we wanted to make sure that all categories of employees at the health center got an honor award. And this is going to be an annual award that will be given out annually for them.
it's celebrating. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going to touch on the piece. It does look like a dichotomy between the hill towns and Amherst.
Yeah.
But the mission is really the same. We are trying to reduce barriers for all people to receive health care. And then that way we really align very much with what Amherst has.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the hill towns are historically harder to reach unless you have your own transportation. So the fact that you are located in at least a few locations in the hill towns helps to alleviate that need to a certain degree. And they are celebrating 75 years of the Hilltown Community Health Center this Saturday, October 4th from 11 to 1 at the Worthington Historical Society in Worthington. What do we anticipate in the next 25 years? I don't want to make you say 75 years.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. We know the federal cuts are harder and harder, but are the needs vastly different now than they were in 75 years ago? Or is it?
That's what's shockingly familiar. Is as we look at board minutes from the beginning, they are talking about the same funding, staffing, and phones. All three of which we are still talking about to this day at the board.
But they were having wired phones then, I'm assuming, yeah?
Yes. But something that Michael said before I think is so important is that at each step, we've always had someone step up. Mm-hmm. And we just continue. I think we see that as a continuation because we became a fairly qualified health center in Worthington because of geography. And so, anyway.
Well, you're doing an important role for our hill towns.
There's repeatedly been a need for primary care providers back then. And now.
Well, that's out of the mouth of a nurse. Nancy Gilbert, who's a board member of HC Squared. And we've also been joined by the CEO, Michael Purdy, and Debbie DiStefano, the chief people person for Hilltown Community Health Center. Congratulations on your 75th anniversary and enjoy the celebration this weekend.
Thank you. We hope you get 75
Please
more.
come up.
Yes. More healthcare tomorrow on the show when we talk about the Turnaway play and how that has to do with women's health access.
Also, we have a Rare Live Music Tuesday with Sally Baby Silver Dollar, Creole Jazz.
And we'll take you to a farm, Kaczynski's Farm Stand in Westfield. I'm Monty.
I'm Khalees. See you tomorrow.